Welcome to this interview with Dr. L. Vijay on Indian metaphysics. Metaphysics is one of the courses being taught in the philosophy programs, but in some of the universities' curriculum, you don't find metaphysics given the kind of importance that it deserves. However, in Indira Gandhi National Open University, when we designed the curriculum, we made it a point to include metaphysics both in the undergraduate as well as in the postgraduate program. Therefore, this discussion on metaphysics, particularly Indian metaphysics, is going to be of very interesting and at the same time an important topic which all of us needs to be taking interest in. Now, to introduce Dr. Vijay, he is an associate professor in the Government Women's College in Trivandrum. He has several years of experience in teaching philosophy. He is a prolific writer. He has written several articles, several research papers in leading journals, particularly in the area of philosophy. He has also contributed some of the chapters on metaphysics in the curriculum which IGNOU has designed. Now, to begin with, I have the first question to you, Doctor. Can you explain the concept of metaphysics?
Thank you, sir. Metaphysics is theory of reality. It is one of the most important of the core constitutive disciplines of philosophy. It inquires into the nature of reality, the source from which reality has emanated, that is, the universe has emanated, what sustains this universe, and ultimately to what this universe returns. These are the fundamental questions that come to any person's mind when he is born in this planet. And therefore, the study of metaphysics is one of the most fundamental pursuits among all the disciplines of knowledge. And as far as metaphysics is concerned, metaphysics has a distinctive approach. Metaphysics makes use of the human reason as a tool or an instrument for analyzing the nature of reality. Now, every discipline makes use of certain tools for analyzing the truth or reality, like the empirical sciences. Take, for example, the empirical sciences. The empirical sciences make use of the method of experimentation, observation and experimentation for understanding the nature of reality. But as far as metaphysics is concerned, metaphysics makes use of reason as an instrument and tries to understand the nature of reality. Now, thinkers from time immemorial, both in the Indian as well as the Western tradition, they have made use of reason as an instrument and tried to understand the nature of reality. Now, this is what constitutes metaphysics.
Well, you have explained the concept of metaphysics. Now, can you explain the features of Indian metaphysics?
Indian philosophy has produced a very well-defined and elaborate system of metaphysics. Indian philosophy can be broadly divided into two divisions, that is the Astika as well as the Nastika darshanas, that is the schools which belong to the orthodox tradition and the schools which belong to the heterodox tradition. Now, the differentiation of orthodox and heterodox is made on the basis of the fact that there are certain schools in Indian philosophy which accept the Vedas as their authority, and such schools are termed as the orthodox schools or the Astika darshanas, and there are also other schools which do not accept the authority of the Vedas, and these schools are called as the Nastika darshanas. Now, whether a school is an Astika darshana or an Astika darshana, each school of Indian philosophy has developed a well-defined system of metaphysics over a period of more than 2500 years. So, it has a rich legacy of metaphysics. Now, as far as Indian metaphysics is concerned, it is closely allied to epistemology and ethics. Now, there is no metaphysics apart from epistemology or ethics. Metaphysics is rooted in epistemology, which is theory of knowledge, and ethics is the means of conduct. Ethics shows you the path of self-realization, the path to attain the ultimate reality. And therefore, the three are allied subjects, they supplement each other. And as far as Indian tradition particularly is concerned, it has treated metaphysics, epistemology and ethics at par and as constitutive of one integral whole. And this is a unique feature of Indian metaphysics. Now, Indian metaphysics can also be broadly divided into the schools of realism as well as the schools of idealism. Now, the schools of realism include the school of Nyaya Vaisheshika, the school of Vaibhashika and Sautrantika schools of Buddhism, then the school of Jainism, and coming to the idealist schools include the school of Madhyamika school of Buddhism, Vijnanavada school of Buddhism, and also we have the absolutistic schools which are also idealistic. Now, Advaita Vedanta is an absolutistic school which is also idealistic. So, these are the realistic and the idealistic schools in Indian metaphysics, and apart from that, India also boasts of a strong school of materialism. Charvaka is the Indian school of materialism.
Yeah, there is a concept of reality.
Yes.
And in Indian metaphysics, what is this concept of reality?
Yeah, according to in Indian metaphysics, the concept of reality is that from which the whole universe has originated, and that which is sustained by a supernatural or a higher power, and the universe ultimately disintegrates or dissolves into that same ultimate reality, and that ultimate reality has been called by various names in various schools. The Vedas and the Upanishads refer to it as the Brahman. The school of Sankhya Yoga refers to it as Prakriti and Purusha. And similarly, every school of Indian philosophy calls this ultimate reality by one name or the other.
See, there are various schools you talk about, and the school of the Indian realism, the school of Indian realism, there could be many such schools.
Yes.
So, could you explain about what are these schools of Indian realism?
One of the most important schools of Indian realism is the school of Nyaya Vaisheshika. Now, originally Nyaya and Vaisheshika originated as separate individual disciplines. They have their respective founders. The founder of Nyaya school is Gautama, and the founder of the Vaisheshika school is Kanada. Now, they are considered as originators only in the sense that they were the people who first systematically expounded the doctrines of that particular school. Now, it is Gautama who in his Nyaya Sutras expounded the fundamental tenets of the Nyaya school, and it is similarly it is Kanada who expounded the fundamental tenets of the Vaisheshika school, Vaisheshika Sutras. And this is one of the most, they have been complementary to each other, and they have over a period of more than 1000 years evolved as one single unit, although they originated as separate schools of philosophy.
How do these schools understand the concept of reality?
Yeah, now these schools, every school of Indian philosophy has a well-defined system of reality, and as far as Nyaya Vaisheshika is concerned, it is a school which considers it is a school of realistic pluralism. That is, it believes in pluralism. That means realities are multivarious, and it is realism because it accepts the existence of an extra-mental world, a world that exists apart from the perceiving mind. That is what is called as an extra-mental world. Now, therefore, this is Nyaya Vaisheshika is a school of realism. Similarly, the other schools of realism are the schools of Vaibhashika and Sautrantika, both of which are schools of Buddhism, and the school of Jainism. Now, the school of Jainism is a school, it is a school of realistic relativistic pluralism.
You spoke about schools of realism. There is also schools of idealism.
Yes.
So, can you throw some light on that schools of idealism?
Yeah. Idealism is also as important a trend of metaphysics in Indian philosophy, and idealism is a school of philosophy which believes in the mind as the ultimate reality. It does not look upon the existence, or it does not believe in the existence of a reality apart from the perceiving mind. And in Indian tradition, the schools of Vijnanavada Buddhism and school of Madhyamika Buddhism, these two schools of Buddhism, they represent the idealist tradition, and other than that, the absolutistic idealism of Advaita Vedanta. Now, these are the fundamental schools of idealism.
What is the Vedantic concept of reality?
Vedanta is one of the most important schools of Indian philosophy. The word Vedanta itself suggests that this school comes as at the end portions of the Vedas. Now, Vedanta is nothing but the Upanishads, and the Upanishads form the last portions of the Veda, and that is how the name Vedanta came into existence. And there is also one more reason why the word Vedanta is used. Vedanta or the Upanishads contain the cream and essence of the teachings of the Vedas, and that is also one of the reasons why the term Vedanta is used. Now, coming to Vedantic metaphysics, Vedanta treats Brahman as the only ultimate reality, but the manner of understanding or expounding the nature of Brahman has varied from thinker to thinker within the school of Vedanta, and therefore various schools of Vedanta have been created over a period of time. Now, there is the absolutistic Vedanta of which is called as Advaita Vedanta of Shankaracharya. There is the school of Vishishtadvaita, or the school which is called as the absolutism of the qualified whole, that is Vishishtadvaita, and the school of dualistic absolutism of Madhvacharya. Now, these are the three fundamental schools of Vedanta. Other than that, there are also other schools. They are mostly of a religious nature, like the Vedanta of Vallabha, the Vedanta of Nimbarka, and Vedanta of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. These are all the other schools of Vedanta. But the most important as far as metaphysics is concerned are the three schools of Advaita Vedanta, Vishishtadvaita Vedanta, and Dvaita Vedanta.
See, when we talk about Indian metaphysics, we get a feeling that there must be also Western metaphysics.
Yes.
Now, are these being taught in the Indian universities?
Yes, almost every syllabus in the Indian universities contain chapters on Indian as well as Western traditions of philosophy. And when you speak of Indian and Western traditions of philosophy, naturally it contains chapters on metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, logic, etc. So most of the universities contain chapters or contains their syllabus on Indian as well as Western traditions of philosophy.
Now, in India, is there any university in your knowledge which provides any kind of a specialization on metaphysics, particularly in the context of India?
Yes. Now, the university where I teach, that is a Kerala university, the syllabus has been designed in such a way that it brings out the conceptual structure of Indian thought. And rather than treating Indian philosophy from a historical perspective, it treats Indian philosophy from a conceptual basis, and it treats metaphysics, epistemology, and ethics separately. And within metaphysics, epistemology, and ethics, each and every school of Indian philosophy has been included. Now, such a syllabus is present also in many other universities also. As far as I know, I have taught in the Mahatma Gandhi University as well, and the Mahatma Gandhi University and Kerala University contain detailed syllabuses which expound Indian theories of metaphysics and epistemology.
Well, I also understand that you have done your PhD in the area of metaphysics.
Yes.
If so, can you explain what was the motive behind it and the kind of topic that selected and how you went around doing that research?
No, as far as my research is concerned, right from my postgraduate days, I was deeply interested in Indian philosophy, and I read Indian philosophy as much as possible through most of the important authors of Indian philosophy like Radhakrishnan, Surendranath Das Gupta, Hiriyana, etc. And this created a kind of interest in me for pursuing Indian philosophy. And especially I was interested in consciousness studies, and therefore I went in search of a university which had a well-defined tradition in Indian philosophy as well as in consciousness studies, and I went to the University of Madras. Okay. And that is where I did my research. Yes.
When we talk about, you also talked about Buddhist philosophy, and in Buddhist philosophy also there is a concept of this metaphysics.
Yes.
Now, is it different from what you find in the, I do not know, in Indian philosophy?
Yes, there are marked differences between the schools of metaphysics of Buddhism and the other traditional schools of Indian philosophy, which are called as the Astika Darshanas. Now, this is because fundamentally the traditional Astika Darshanas, they accept the existence of one ultimate reality. It could be called as the self, or it could be called as the Brahman, or by any other name. But coming to Buddhism, Buddhism denies the existence of a permanent self. And one of the most important postulates of the metaphysics of Buddhism is called as Nairatmyavada, which is the theory of no self. According to Buddhism, there is no self which remains as a permanent entity behind all the change or flux in the universe. And therefore, no self or no permanent entity need to be posited for that matter. And thus they come to their theory of Nairatmyavada. Now, along with that, there is a supplementary theory which is called as the theory of Kshanikavada. Now, the theory of Kshanikavada is called as the theory of momentariness. Now, according to this theory, every object lasts only for a moment. No object lasts for a long period of time, or no object can be called as permanent. So therefore, it is impossible to speak of an eternal self or an eternal ultimate reality while standing within the framework of Buddhist metaphysics.
Well, when you talk about again this topic about or the course on metaphysics,
yes,
some feel that metaphysics is not very important in a program of study on philosophy. What is your view on that?
Now, this particular opinion is rampant, that a study of metaphysics is not important. Now, this idea emerged somewhere in the early part of the 20th century, where there was a very strong movement in the West against metaphysics, which was led by one of the top scientists of that period. And they believed that over a period of a long tradition of Western philosophy has produced systems and systems of metaphysics. But still, most of these systems of metaphysics have come into conflict with each other. And therefore, it is impossible for the Western thinker to speak of one particular concept of reality. Now, therefore, the scientist questioned the methods which were employed by the philosophers for arriving at their theories of metaphysics, because the scientist made the allegation that most of the theories of metaphysics which were created by the philosophers were based on speculation and not based on objective facts, as it is in the case of science. So therefore, they believed that metaphysics is simply speculation. It is armchair philosophy, and that is the reason why there was a general trend of opinion against metaphysics in the 20th century, and that still continues. Even with the postmodern thought, there is a denial of metaphysics.
Well, suppose you are given an opportunity to design curriculum for undergraduate students and postgraduate students. Would you propose or promote metaphysics in both the curriculum? If so, then what could be the kind of variations or difference? How will you propose to design that kind of a curriculum?
I believe metaphysics is one of the most important constituent disciplines of philosophy, and it is impossible to do philosophy or understand philosophy without studying metaphysics in detail. Because, see, any person who is born to this planet fundamentally tries to know whether his attempts are naive or whether his attempts are worthy of consideration is another question. But any person who is born to this planet tries to understand the nature of the reality around him, where he is situated. And therefore, this is one of the most fundamental issues that concern human life, and therefore there cannot be a study of philosophy by omitting metaphysics. And metaphysics also goes with epistemology and ethics. Now, one cannot give an emphasis on epistemology and deny metaphysics, or remove metaphysics and exclusively focus on epistemology, because they are supplementary to each other and they are also basically interwoven. So it is impossible to treat of them separately, or it is impossible to remove metaphysics from the syllabus of any syllabus of philosophy.
You must be also quite familiar with some of the prominent writers, authors, or thinkers on Indian metaphysics. Can you throw some light on some of those people and their writings?
Yes, of course. Many thinkers have come up with excellent volumes on Indian metaphysics. Of course, Dr. Radhakrishnan's 2 volumes on Indian philosophy is a classical work in Indian, not only in Indian metaphysics but also in every aspect of Indian philosophy. Another work which I would strongly recommend is The Structural Depths of Indian Thought, written by a very noted writer, P.T. Raju. Now, The Structural Depths of Indian Thought has analyzed the systems of metaphysics, epistemology and ethics in Indian thought in considerable detail and depth. And also at the end of every chapter, Raju has given certain notes which are actually help a student of philosophy to raise new questions regarding Indian metaphysics. Those are highly thought-provoking statements, and I am sure that it can pave way for a lot of research in Indian metaphysics.
Now, is the learning of Indian metaphysics a difficult task? Are the books available in only in English or in a particular language like Sanskrit or Hindi or other Indian languages? Understanding about
Now, as far as a study of Indian philosophy is concerned, certainly getting down to the originals helps a lot. And to get down to the originals, it is important that we have a knowledge of the scriptures in the language in which it is written. Of course, many translations are available, and there are excellent translations, especially published by the Ramakrishna Mission. They have come out with beautiful translations of most of the important scriptures in the Indian tradition. But still, I think they should be treated as a stepping stone to understand the nature of the scriptures in their original form. So, a knowledge of the Indian languages like Sanskrit, Pali and Prakrit would be of great help in understanding Indian philosophy.
Now, when you talk about again Indian metaphysics, how do the Western academics view their view on Indian metaphysics? Are they interested in promoting it, or are there people coming from there those countries to India and pursuing this study?
Of course, yes. I should say that Indian thought, be it metaphysics, epistemology or ethics or any branch of Indian philosophy, has received a lot of recognition in the West. Of late, there was a lot of misconception about Indian thought in general in the West, say maybe 100 or 200 years ago. But in the recent history of say 100 or 200 years, many Western thinkers, they have come to India. They have dedicated their whole lives in studying the Indian languages, and they have written, studied the scriptures in much detail, and they have written extensive treatises on Indian schools of philosophy. And therefore, I should certainly say that at least in the past 150 or 200 years, Indian philosophy has won great recognition in the West. But there are also very strong critics of Indian philosophy still, even in the West today. There are thinkers who believe that Indian philosophy is stagnant. Indian philosophy has not yet gone beyond the stage of mythology. There are also thinkers who believe that Indian philosophy is nothing but Indian religion. There is no philosophy apart from religion or mythology. And therefore, there are many misconceptions regarding Indian philosophy even now. But I believe things have changed a little bit over the past, because many translations of Indian scriptures are now available in English and other European languages.
Well, Dr. Vijay, it was a very lively discussion. I really appreciate the depth of knowledge that you have got on this particular subject of Indian metaphysics. I am sure our students will be benefiting much from this interview that I had with you on Indian metaphysics. Thank you so much.